Tears and candles at Freedom Plaza in Northwest D.C. tonight to honor the victims of the deadly shooting at the Navy Yard.
He played a lot of the online games where they were shooting all the time.
A Buddhist searching for peace, but with a quick temper and love of violent video games. Tonight, what friends are saying about shooter Aaron Alexis.
And the danger may be over, but the paperwork isn't. Tonight, as many as 2,000 employees stayed well past 9, waiting to be debriefed by the FBI. The news starts now.
This is breaking news from NBC 12.
That breaking news includes brand new information on the gunman and the victims of this mass shooting. You're watching 12 News at 11. I'm Sabrina Squire.
And I'm Kurt Autry. I want to show you some new video now. Take a look at how Southeast Washington, D.C. looks at this very hour. Still an active crime scene with police on every street corner up and down M Street, the main thoroughfare leading to the scene of the shooting that left 13 people, including the shooter, dead.
Ryan Nobles leads off our newscast from outside the Navy Yard where today's horror unfolded. Ryan, what have you learned this evening?
Well, D.C. police just wrapped up a press briefing in the last half hour, Sabrina, and in that press briefing we learned quite a bit. First of all, probably the most important bit of information for the folks that live in this area, they are confident that there was only one shooter responsible for this tragedy. They've lifted the recommended shelter-in-place order for the area, and for the first time we're learning more about the victims. Many of their names were released to the media, not all of them, but many of them. They range in age from their 40s and into their 70s, and this town is now searching for what went wrong here today. On an average D.C. fall night, this part of town should be bustling. Crowds rushing to see the hometown Nats compete in a pennant race. Instead, the streets are empty, the space filled by noisy news trucks and the lights of police cars. And now, the search for answers.
We got a report on the 4th floor, a male with a shotgun, multiple shots fired, multiple people down.
I can't even begin to imagine what they're going to be going through. I don't even want to speculate.
D.C. police and the FBI are looking for more information on this man, 43-year-old Aaron Alexis, the gunman who allegedly took up perch in the 4th floor balcony of Building 197 on the Navy Yard and rained gunfire on an unsuspecting crowd in a vast atrium below.
As it has heard pop, 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 pop.
A one-time naval reservist, Alexis has prior brushes with the law and may have gained access to the secure Navy Yard with a former contractor's ID. His fatal actions led to a morning of terror for the 3,000 employees on the Naval Yard.
What was I thinking when I heard the shots? I was thinking I want to get to some place that nobody can see me real fast.
Despite the awful tragedy, family members waiting outside for their loved ones and those in the midst of the event were in some cases not even surprised.
It's sad, really, but it's the world we live in today. It's part of living in Washington, D.C.
The D.C. police force and mayor remain committed to making sure all the questions are answered, and this city is hoping life can get back to normal as soon as possible. And that investigation into the shooter's past has picked up tonight here in Washington, D.C. The police zeroed in on a local residence inn where it is believed that that was the last place where he was living. They've been in and out of that building all night tonight. Also, NBC News is reporting that the rental car that the suspect may have last used was also located. And the D.C. police chief tonight does not think that terrorism is the possible cause for this shooting, but he said tonight that they still cannot rule it out because there is still so little that they know about this shooter and his motives. And we'll have more on that shooter with Kurt Autry coming up in just a minute. But first, we want to bring in Ashley Montfort, who after today's chaotic scene here, you went to what was supposed to be a bit more of a peaceful scene as folks had an impromptu gathering for the victims.
Right, I've been all over D.C. tonight trying to find those moments of hope during this difficult time. Now, earlier today, we saw the friends and family that were reunited with their loved ones at National Stadium. And tonight, there was a spontaneous but small vigil to remember the victims of today's shooting. As the sun set on the nation's capital, a small group of people gathered on Freedom Plaza. They lit candles to remember the victims of today's shooting rampage.
Our hearts are with them. Our hearts are breaking with them.
There were more members of the media than people actually attending the vigil, but the people here tonight say it doesn't take away from them trying to express their condolences to the families of the shooting victims.
I'd love to see more people, but I think that, we're doing the best to support those, who need it right now.
People here tonight told us they want the violence to end, and these mass shootings are becoming far too common.
We're now seeing mass shootings in our movie theaters, our places of worship, our children's schools.
Definitely hit hard, and it hit home a lot.
It was video like this of the U.S. Navy Yard that kept people glued to their televisions and the internet. But there were also moments like this of relief and reunion during this time of tragedy. And as the night fell on D.C., the flags were lowered to half-staff. Some say it shows we are united during this difficult time. Now, that vigil was at the Freedom Plaza, which is only a couple of blocks away from the White House. The group that organized it, they're called Project End of Gun Violence, and they support legislation for responsible gun ownership. So they're the ones that put that on today.
Yeah, and of course, Ashley, even though a lot of people don't like it, this automatically begins a political discussion. We've already seen that today on the NBC 12 Facebook page, and it's probably only the beginning of what we'll see over the next couple of days. Ashley Montfort, thank you for your reporting today. And I should point out that they're going to do their very best to try and get this city running back up to normal tomorrow. A lot of the streets that were closed throughout the day today have been reopened. In fact, this good portion of M Street behind us, which a lot of it was closed down for most of the day, they've now opened traffic heading in both directions, but not all the lanes are open. But if you're headed up to DC tomorrow for some reason, it would probably behoove you to check out their recent traffic pages just to see what roads will be closed so you don't end up in some sort of a traffic nightmare. As for the Navy Yard itself, it remains closed. Only people who are considered to be mission essential are to report to duty here at the Navy Yard tomorrow, as the investigation into exactly what went wrong here will continue. And that is the very latest from Washington, D.C. tonight. I'm Ryan Nobles for NBC 12. Let's send it back to Kurt and Sabrina in the studio, where Kurt is going to have more. He's done some digging into the background of the suspected shooter. Kurt?
Yeah, I've been digging up all I can, Ryan, about the Navy Yard shooter, and a picture is emerging tonight of a man of sharp contrast. During his time in Fort Worth, 34-year-old Aaron Alexis sought inner peace at a Buddhist temple, but friends say he also has a hair-trigger temper and a love of firearms and violent video games.
Right now we have multiple pieces of information that would suggest that we have at least 2 other individuals that were seen with firearms.
But tonight, investigators believe the shots were fired by one person acting alone, who was then killed by responding police. Authorities say 34-year-old Aaron Alexis moved to the D.C. area 4 months ago from Fort Worth, Texas. A Navy petty officer specializing in electronics, he had served as a naval reservist. Sources say he had a job working at the yard as a civilian contractor, but investigators are looking into claims he recently lost that job. A former roommate back in Texas said he was furious.
The company that he worked for, they were gonna pay him, and they didn't pay him. He told me that. He called me and told me that.
And it's that same roommate who says Alexis was obsessed with violent video games.
He didn't come out of his room much. Like I said, he played a lot of them online games where they were shooting all the time. And we would joke with him about that sometimes, because they were like, well, his computer screen was like lifelike. It was big.
But the owner of the Happy Bowl Thai restaurant in Fort Worth doesn't see it that way. He also is a former roommate. He met Alexis at a Buddhist temple and described him as even-keeled and good-natured.
You said you met him at the Buddhist temple just down the street?
Yeah, down the street, yeah.
So to you, he's always been a peaceful guy?
Always peaceful guy, and always, well, I've been here almost 4 or 5 years, and I have a lot of stuff to learn.
And then there's this, a 2004 police report from his time in Seattle, where Alexis was arrested for shooting out another man's tires in what Alexis himself would later describe to detectives as an anger-fueled blackout.
And there was also an arrest in Fort Worth, Texas, when Alexis was accused of accidentally discharging his firearm in his second-story apartment. That bullet went through the floor and into the unit below. And as this story first started unfolding, several news outlets initially reported a Virginia man was the person who pulled the trigger. Now, this is some video that we have of the home in Stafford where 50-year-old Raleigh Lee Chance lives. I want to bring in Jessica Jaglois, who's just back from the Stafford area. And Jess, you've been talking with the neighbors and people around that area. What do they say about the shooting and this man's possible connection, if any?
Well, Kurt, it still is very unclear right now. Raleigh Chance, we do know, is a retired Navy lieutenant, according to online records. How he might know Aaron Alexis still, again, isn't clear. But the FBI and other law enforcement were in and out of his Stafford home this afternoon.
Blinds drawn, doors closed. 50-year-old Raleigh Lee Chance's Stafford home is quiet. Whether anyone is inside, a mystery. Monday afternoon, FBI agents and other law enforcement officials shuffled in and out of his home, though it's unclear what they were doing or whom they were speaking to. We spoke to residents in this largely military neighborhood. Christine Rodriguez says she was worried for her children when initial reports said Chance was the D.C. gunman.
My son walks home from the school right next to our neighborhood, and I was very nervous, and I made arrangements for them to get home a different way.
According to other neighbors who didn't want to speak on camera, Chance is a retired Navy lieutenant who recently went back to work.
You just don't know. You think you know people. And
how Chance is tied to Aaron Alexis and the D.C. shooting, if he is at all, remains unclear. There are reports Chance's badge was found near the gunman's lifeless body. Initially, it was said Alexis used Chance's badge to gain entry into the Navy Yard, but we now know that isn't the case. Alexis himself had clearance. We tried to speak to anyone inside the Chance home, but our phone calls and knocks on the door both went unanswered.
Now, Chance is reportedly from Georgia originally, speaking to our NBC affiliate in Savannah. His family says Chance is employed at the Navy Yard, and they haven't heard from him since yesterday. Now, I'm going to stay right here in our breaking news center, and if any updates come in during the newscast, of course, I will pass them along to you. Sabrina, back to you.
Jessica, thanks so much. Reaction tonight from the head of Virginia State Police through the 9/11 attacks, the D.C. sniper chaos, and he oversaw a review panel after the mass shooting at Virginia Tech. Tonight, Colonel Gerald Massengill is talking with our Chris Thomas about the lessons learned from tragedies right here in Virginia and how those lessons save lives today. Chris, what is the Colonel saying about yet another mass shooting?
Well, Sabrina, he says each time the response from law enforcement is getting better and better. And he says the very language used on the scene has changed following these tragedies.
It's just so difficult to stop and very challenging to deal with.
Colonel Gerald Massengill allowing us inside his home for a candid sit-down conversation about authorities' almost textbook response to the mass shooting at the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C.
Law enforcement has learned from what we've been through, and fast responses are key.
Colonel Massengill led Virginia State Police and chaired a review panel after the mass shootings at Virginia Tech. They made recommendations on everything from how officers go after the suspect.
Prior to Columbine and Virginia Tech, law enforcement secured the scene, contained the environment, and waited for appropriate resources. We learned that while that was going on, people were being killed, so we began to train for active shooters. Go immediately to the active shooter.
To how soon and often public briefings should be held.
A lot of times they say very little, sometimes nothing. But the fact that they're talking to the public, it removes that stigma of something that's being hidden.
After the initial response comes coping with the tragedy for the first responders.
It's an unbelievable and almost undescribable situation that these first responders go through.
And of course the victims and their families.
We learned at Virginia Tech and at Columbine, you have to talk, you have to open lines of communications with the families and these victims, because the families that are left behind are just as much victims as the ones that were killed.
And keep in mind that Virginia Tech independent review panel made more than 72 recommendations. Many of those recommendations were on full display today. For now, Chris Thomas, NBC 12 News.
And right now, tonight's planned National Braves game is on hold. Nationals Park, of course, just 2 blocks from where the shooting happened. The game will be played tomorrow as part of a split doubleheader. The first game at 1 o'clock, the second at 7:05. More on the sports world's response to today's violence. That's coming up a little later in about 10 minutes.
But first, Kurt, I want to take a moment to remind everyone that we are committed to bringing you the latest on this breaking story the minute information comes in. We were the first Central Virginia station to bring you live coverage, and our team is working nonstop to update NBC12.com, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't done so already, take a moment to download our free NBC12 News app for real-time breaking alerts. Meanwhile, I have new information on what was going on down at the White House just hours after the mass shooting. The Secret Service says a middle-aged man tossed a lit firecracker over the fence at the North Lawn. Officers jumped the man and led him away in cuffs. Homeland Security says they don't know why he did it, but add the man posed no threat. It appears this event has no connection with the Navy Yard shootings.
I'm also getting confirmation the Longwood student believed to have accidentally shot a school lacrosse player has just been charged with a crime. 21-year-old Jacob Richardson faces 1 count of reckless handling of a firearm. Farmville police say Richardson was trying to unload a handgun when it accidentally discharged, hitting 21-year-old Kathleen Battle in the leg. Now, Kathleen is fine. She's expected to be okay. Richardson, though, is due back in court in 2 weeks.
Developing just moments ago, the Richmond School Board decides to run the clock on whether John Marshall High School will score a new football field. Take a look at what the field looks like now. It's pretty worn, but the NFL is offering up a $200,000 grant. That money would help pay for a new field, but first the school board must give the go-ahead. Kelly Avellino is just back from the board meeting. Kelly, why are members holding up on a decision?
Sabrina, $200,000 is pretty enticing, but the school board has to match that amount. Meantime, the NFL program that's awarded John Marshall the grant could decide to give it to a school somewhere else. The $200,000 is the largest grant in a Richmond area school has ever been awarded. Board members say they want more time to try and get corporate sponsors to help fund that project. The proposed new field would have a synthetic turf, but the school board can opt to install a grass field, which would cost half that amount. Supporters of the field urge the board tonight to accept the money and find the funds to revamp John Marshall High Stadium.
We understand that there's been a great deal of controversy, and I need to say to you that this is probably the first time that we've experienced such controversy. This is a good thing.
Now, if the board decides to go with the grass field, the NFL would have to approve that change. And the board hopes to make a decision at the end of the month. We'll keep you posted. I'm Kelly Avellino for NBC 12 News.
Tomorrow's forecast tonight in high definition. This is NBC 12 First Warning Weather.
Hey, we got some cool air headed our way. What do you see the temperatures again expected over the next 24 hours? I'll show you in a couple minutes. Let's start with our Elephant Insurance WeatherNet sites over the area. 61 degrees already down east end at the Math and Science Innovation Center. Twin Hickory, Deep Run High School is 60, 59 Mineral at Louisa County High School. And current temperatures regionally, generally in the mid to upper 50s. Dew points are dropping pretty nicely now. Some lower humidity air working in from the north. The cold front as well south of us tonight. Clear scans on Doppler radar. We had little spits of rain today, not much really around Metro Richmond or Central Virginia, as now high pressure is building in. So that's going to funnel in another shot of dry, cool air. The center of this ridge is really strong for this time of year. This is like a big mountain of air, cool air, a dome of high pressure moving across the Great Lakes tonight. We have this northerly wind with it. It will spread into New England, and then very quickly as it moves to the east, we start to catch more of a south wind. That's what will warm us up as we work our way through the rest of this week. But bottom line is for tonight, we're just looking for some mainly clear skies. We had some cloudiness through the day today, but the balance is tonight clear. Now this takes us into early tomorrow morning. Through the day tomorrow will be lots of sunshine. Very nice day. We've had several of these here lately. This is going to be another one. Of course, nice would be a little bit of rain, I guess, in some spots, but we're going to enjoy these nice temperatures nevertheless. Cool again. Highs in the lower 70s throughout most of the area later tomorrow afternoon. This is into tomorrow evening. Now, overnight tomorrow night, we have some clear skies. And then into Wednesday, after a cool start, temperatures in the lower 50s early Wednesday morning. Lots of sunshine expected, temperatures getting up into the upper 70s. Rain out to the west won't be a factor for us for a few more days. It looks like we may have to wait till the weekend to see another good chance of some showers and storms. Sun comes up tomorrow morning at 6:53. Your commuter forecast, 60 degrees, 4 a.m. temperature. 56 will be our early morning low before sunrise. 57 degrees, your 7 a.m. reading. Should be nice, clear sailing out there for the morning commute weather-wise. 57 again to start the day under mostly sunny skies. Noon hour, we're at 68, mostly sunny. And then late afternoon, our highs around 73, about 72 degrees at 4 p.m. Again, lots of sun, that wind coming in from the north and northeast. Early evening at 69, sunsets at 7:14. Extended forecast shapes up like this. Lower 50s tomorrow night, maybe upper 40s in some colder spots west of Richmond. 77 Wednesday, 80 degrees Thursday's high. Friday we warm up to 84 degrees. Saturday and Sunday, shower chances go up. In fact, for Saturday, cold front approaches, moving our way by late in the day. Shower and storm chances go up late in the day through early Sunday. Seasonable temperatures coming back, though. We're going to start out quite warm Saturday at 83, cooling down a bit for Sunday. So increasing clouds Saturday, afternoon showers and storms. More showers in the morning Sunday, then some clearing skies. Stay tuned. More news is coming up.
NBC 12 News was first on the air with live reports from the D.C. Navy Yard shooting. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter for immediate updates and watch on air as new information develops.
This day is not over yet.
NBC 12 News on your side with complete coverage.
To the victims and families affected by the D.C. Navy Yard shooting, our hearts and prayers go out to you. NBC 12 News is on your side. Stay with us for the latest on the investigation from Washington to here at home. NBC 12 News, on your side, on air and online.
The Nationals game may be the only professional sporting event directly affected by today's shooting at the Navy Yard, but sporting venues across the country paying tribute to the victims of the tragedy. Moments of silence being held tonight throughout the nation, including on Monday Night Football between the Bengals and Steelers, as well as several baseball games. The Nationals and Braves will play tonight's scheduled game tomorrow at 1:05 as part of a doubleheader. NBC 12's Matt Estridge will have reports tomorrow evening. And sports figures responding to the shooting via Twitter. Bryce Harper, thoughts and prayers go out to the victims and responders at the Navy Yard. It's absolutely sickening people do this. Former Hermitage football and NFL star Darren Sharper, my thoughts and prayers go out to the victims at Naval Shipyard in D.C., praying they will persevere. And VCU AD Ed McLaughlin, adding to the thoughts and prayers, adding serving our country is hard enough, so senseless, stay safe D.C. And we'll be back with more sports right after this. Corey Marshall may have rejoined the Virginia Tech football team, but actually seeing the field seems to be in his distant future at best. Marshall will redshirt the remainder of the season and open 2014 with 2 years of eligibility remaining, his high school coach Billy Mills tells us. The Dinwiddie product leaving the team for personal reasons. Prior to the start of the season, Marshall will continue to practice with the team, but will not play in any games this season. Well, Glen Allen has started year 3 of varsity football out on the right foot. The Jaguars out to a 2-0 start after winning a combined 3 games its first 2 seasons. Head coach Francel Smith says the team has bought into the plan, and that's translating into wins on the field. The Jags have a big one coming up this Friday against Mills Godwin, but still focused on building the program.
It's a big difference, and, you know, attitude is a lot. Has to do with winning, and they're starting to have that buy-in of, you know, we can win games and we can compete in games, and that's just changed the whole atmosphere here.
It might just be like the experience that we have, because the first couple of years we were so raw and we had so many like new starters. A lot of the guys, like I'm a 3-year starter, we have a bunch of 3-year starters coming up, and even the young guys like coming up, they have a lot of good experience playing too.
Kickoff between the Jags and Godwin set for 7 o'clock at Glen Allen. Ram Hoops fans, meet Terry Larrier. He's the 4-star recruit who committed to VCU just a few hours ago. Larrier from the Bronx is the 3rd 4-star recruit in Shaka Smart's class of 2014. Definitely shaping up to be a good one there. And that's sports. We're back after this.
Our live team coverage of the D.C. mass shooting continues tomorrow morning at 4:30 on NBC 12 News Today, then throughout the morning from New York and on the Today Show.
Mike Valerio will be live in our nation's capital, and we'll also be monitoring developments from our breaking news center.
That's it for us, but we're on your side 24/7. Just go to NBC12.com.
We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.